Hello.
Susan,
Ah, wonderful. We got through. Okay. How are you?
we're away.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
Good, good. Okay, good. All right. Mr. Craine? Or how would you like to be called? Stewart or Mr. Craine or...
Stewart is fine.
Stewart? Okay. All right. I'm really glad we finally got connected. And how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
All right.
I just got back from my USA trip yesterday and got a good night's sleep to recover from jet lag.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, finding fit and ready to get stuck into work again.
Okay, good. Well, I'm really excited because of I also read up on what has been happening with Barefoot Power, but above all, I'm curious how you got started.
12 years ago after university, I managed to be a part of similar to Peace Corps in the USA, and it's called Australian Volunteers International.
Oh, okay.
Gave me some time to go overseas to Nepal, living in Kathmandu and building micro hydrogen power projects in remote villages in western Nepal. And that was, yeah, a fantastic experience. Obviously only got paid minimum wages, but I still lived pretty well. And did some engineering in places that really needed the engineering.
Oh, very good.
But it was clear that aid was not going to scale up to help these people out on a larger scale. And so I started thinking of different business models that might work, but also there was a new technology, white LED lighting, which now most people are familiar with.
Yes.
That was just being invented at that stage, or doing some projects with Light Up the World Foundation.
Oh.
From Canada, probably the earliest mover in this space. And yeah, that was really interesting, but the price was still high, the efficiencies were not good enough yet. But clearly in about 5 years, that technology was going to do something amazing. So I went home for 4 years and did large-scale wind farm development work with a power utility here in Australia to get more commercial experience and not be written off as a lunatic volunteer for the rest of my life. And that was a great experience too. Got some good development of renewables experience in multiple avenues with a big company. And then by 2005, the white LED prices had really come down. The technology was getting ready for mass implementation. And you might have seen these silly little solar garden lights.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, we have some in front of our yard.
And they light up absolutely nothing whatsoever. Completely useless. But that combination of a small solar panel, a rechargeable battery and LED lights being mass manufactured by China, of course, not India or anywhere else, was demonstrating, hey, these products are being made at a good price that's going to be affordable to the poor. So I bought myself a one-way ticket to China in 2005, or 2006 probably, actually. And that was that. You know, we got stuck into it. And yeah, it's been interesting ever since.
I can see that. This thing's really exploded. Oh, and also did you get involved with Mr. Andrews or Harry Andrews right then and there, or was that something later?
Yeah, so Harry I met in the first year at the wind farm company, and then we did a job together in our last year at the company, about 3 or 4 years later. We didn't actually interact that much during our time there, but we enjoyed doing the work together in Papua New Guinea, and we got some very good feedback of our ideas of doing rural electrification in a way that did not involve coal cables and wires and expensive mini-grids.
Right, you want to keep it simple.
Payback systems of 1 to 10 watt lighting systems rather than kilowatts of power. But the problem was our company didn't want to invest in the idea, and our client did want to see something happen. So we thought, well, bugger it, let's do it. You know, we were thinking of quitting the company anyway for multiple reasons. And so we thought, well, you know, this is a time, this is an opportunity, let's give it a shot, see what happens. So Barefoot Power was born.
Was it the Tasmanian Hydro? That's the company?
Yeah, Tasmania Hydro was where we were working together.
Oh, okay.
And Barefoot was actually set up in Tasmania originally. And then later, as we both moved overseas to do field work, we based it out of Mum's garage in Bathurst, New South Wales.
Oh, fantastic.
If you called the main number of Barefoot Power in the early years, you would have heard a Winter Rose cottage bed and breakfast, and in most cases.
Oh, yes, that's how I got the phone number. Actually, that's the first number I call. Oh, wow, that was the place of origin. Oh, wonderful.
Mum's a bit of an entrepreneur as well.
You can see that, runs in the family. Oh, well, since then, you guys have acquired so many awards and recognition. That must be really a wonderful feeling to be acknowledged, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't something that we were deliberately aiming to achieve, except we're to the stage when investors were being very reticent to actually recognise any value in Barefoot Power. And we're having a lot of arguments with investors about what the valuation might be, despite that our valuation was considerably lower than other similar entities in our space, like D-Light and Tough Stuff. And yet, you know, there was still a lot of resistance. And so basically, my strategy for that was, well, let's go and get a second opinion from multiple organisations and see what other people think about it. And in 2010, we won 3 out of 4 top prizes for Lighting Africa IFC Product Design Awards. 2 years ago, we won the G20 SME Finance Challenge to prove that we were leading innovation in financial innovation for our invoice factoring program. And so it wasn't just technical, it wasn't just engineering, it was also solving the financial problems around delivering to the poor in unique ways. And eventually, you know, we won that argument, and investors accepted our valuation after a 2 or 3 year argument, and we don't have to go out there and win as many awards anymore. So.
That's good. Well, I'm really glad you won those arguments, because I think that's how I got connected, because I found out about Barefoot Power through an organization called Kiva, which is a microfinance organization. So I was curious, how did Barefoot Power, around what year did you become connected to Kiva? Yes, Kiva. Connection with Kiva, or between Kiva and Barefoot Power.
So I was watching Kiva as early back as 2006. In fact, Kiva and Barefoot Power are the same age. We both started in 2005. And I saw them being mentioned on Social Edge when I was based in China. Social Edge is a bit of an online blogging forum about social enterprise and investment. And it was set up by the Skoll Foundation, I think. And tracked them from early on, but I could really see they had an innovative new model to help connect individuals to lending opportunities with the poor. And that gave an alternative to the usual institutional style of investment. And in the past, we've had a lot of success with angel investors and non-institutional finance reacting much more quickly to the needs of the business than institutional investors, who, because they manage other people's money instead of investing their own, they have to take longer time to do their due diligence. Kiva has obviously grown to enormous success, and we tried to get them interested early on in energy lending, but they were pretty busy just doing conventional stuff. But now they've grown to get a bit of more solidification and look at the next phase of what goes beyond normal microfinance, of lending for chickens and sewing machines and things like that. They're now really looking at alternative partnerships than just looking at microfinance institutions. And that's where our prize from the G20 summit 2 years ago helps position ourselves as an innovator in financial solutions as much as technical engineering solutions. And I think that grabbed their attention a little bit and enabled us to be selected as one of their very first non-conventional field partners. As an example, the first entrepreneur that got put on the website from our network raised $50,000 in just 10 days.
Right. Martin.
Yeah, that's quite a large raise for Kiva.
We're hoping to see more in the future.
Yeah, I think there's going to be more that are going up there for sure, and I think it also demonstrates that the appetite of lenders is definitely there to help lend for green energy.
And especially for a lot of these nations in Africa where the infrastructure is not as well developed as the developed nations, I can see this is a fantastic way to go.
Yeah, and we actually had an early experience back around 2007 or 8 where we shipped some products to Uganda through a Kiva-style platform based in Europe called MyC4, where you can actually earn interest on their platform. And we managed to raise €10,000 in the time that the container was shipping from China to Uganda. So it was actually real-time financing. He didn't have money to pay for delivery when we were shipping that credit, and he did have money to pay by the time the container arrived. So that was something that really demonstrated to me very early on about how quickly peer-to-peer financing networks can help evaluate a business case that's presented online to people and to execute a rapid financing offer to help importers around the world who want to diversify into clean energy work. So yeah, very excited about the possibilities that are coming up and of doing small deals fast. I think that's really what the key message is here. We need a lot of fast deals to be done that are mostly quite small, and too many investors are probably in the space for equity-style investments, of having a share ownership in a business. That doesn't really work for small, growing renewable companies, because how are you going to exit? How are you going to sell your shares?
Right.
However, we also noticed that Kiva and MyC4 and those sorts of platforms also have a bit of a limiting factor as well. 3 years after our first loan in Uganda, we managed, €10,000, we managed to close a debt financing round of $300,000, 30 times bigger.
Oh, wow.
That shows you how we took a very small company, exerted resources and effort ourselves, and grew a startup very quickly. And you can't do that on the Kiva and MyC4 platforms. Once you've got a loan, you've got to pay that back over 1 or 2, 3 years before you can increase the amount. So it's not a silver bullet that solves everything, and it doesn't necessarily help rapidly scaling businesses. But we're going to work creatively with Kiva over the next few years to see what can be done. And when I say we, I'm not necessarily representing Barefoot Power in this interview, as I'm no longer the CEO, I'm just a board member and the founder. So Barefoot's official view would come from the CEO, but I would be working with some of the angel investors in a new spin-out called Village Infrastructure Angels that is helping to push energy lending and other initiatives into the industry, both with Barefoot and other industry players.
All right. And so, but as a whole, Barefoot Power is it for profit or for non-profit or? And
yeah, it's a for-profit entity, and we were tempted to set up a hybrid structure to have a non-profit arm as well. We decided early on we really wanted a very clear message about Barefoot that this is a startup. This is not a charity. This is a profitable enterprise. We're going to aim for any of the metrics that any other kind of startup would in Sydney, with similar sorts of double-digit returns that debt and equity investors might want or need, and to remove the perception of investment risk around investing in the poor, rather than concentrating on yet another app for an iPhone or another new bar or something in the city. So we wanted people to really step up and take investment ideas and throw them at the idea of poverty alleviation. And we had no idea about the phrase social enterprise.
Oh yes, back then.
No idea whatsoever. But we won an award for that in 2006 for Business in Development, based in the Netherlands, big network. And then we found out we were social entrepreneurs. And such a thing existed.
Well, time changes. There's a wonderful, there's just fantastic tools nowadays, which would not have been available 10 years ago. But it's also great that Barefoot Power is considered as a for-profit, and so this would essentially become an inspiration for a lot of other business models in the future, that it can be profitable. I mean, doing good can be profitable.
Well, I'm quite shameless when I say this is for a house. I'm the world's worst real estate property investor.
Sounds like me.
Completely missed the big property boom of the last 10 years.
Oh, that sounds like us. Okay. We always purchase property when it's about ready to go down.
Exactly. And now with all the prices sky high and those baby boomers trying to steal all your money, you've got to do something pretty ridiculous to actually afford a house these days. So combining the love of working villages with the challenge of commercial engineering was a good challenge, but it was clearly going to be a 5 to 10 year challenge at least to create something worthwhile. And if you were going to create something worthwhile, then you might as well be aiming to try and get a house out of it. The median price in Sydney is about $600,000 or $700,000. So rounding that up to $1 million, the concept was we're going to get diluted from full ownership when we start to maybe 10% ownership by the end. And therefore, if we need $1 million of value, we need to create a $10 million company. So the plan was always to try and create a company that was worth $10 million, which might be something like a revenue figure of $10 to $20 million. And that's of sufficient size that you could IPO in Australia. The median IPO in Australia is actually around $10 to $20 million compared to the NASDAQ, which is $50 million. Or a company might be interested in $10 to $20 million of new revenue and new markets, such as maybe Philips, Schneider Electric, or some telco companies. So, yeah, we're now 7 years through that 10-year period, and we're basically on track. We've delivered good returns for all our investors along the way, and hopefully can get a bit more public with some of the tools and methods that we used to do the capital raising and valuation exercise, and how that's panned out. Also contrasting it particularly maybe to some of the others in the space. But yeah, I'm happy to talk with anyone who wanted to reach out and ask questions about that, because I think we got it fairly well done.
And also, in the first couple of years, were you able to get any help from any kind of grants or any other organizations, encouragements or aids or?
As a startup, we reached out to the usual first port of call, which is the family and friends financing round. So Mum and Dad were some of the first investors on both sides of the family partnership. Both the Craine family and the Andrews family dropped a few bits of coin into the hat as it was passed around. God bless them. I don't think they'll be retiring to Bermuda the proceeds of those investments, but they are amongst one of the better investments on paper that they've made in the last 6 or 7 years. And some has mostly gone sideways. And then also the BID network, our business plan helped us secure a small grant there, but exposure to our first institutional investor, Loco Credit. And early grant support was secured from the Australian Greenhouse Office at the federal government level, now the Department of Environment and Heritage, assisted with looking at coconut oil being used in diesel generators in Papua New Guinea and developing LED lighting systems. Can't say the coconut oil idea really took off quite as much as the LED lighting systems did. And also we got early support from Doan Foundation, postcode lottery in the Netherlands, which helped with a lot of market entry work that we were doing in multiple countries at the same time. So we're very grateful for those early supports, but that early rounds of financing was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars mark, and since then we've raised about $14 million. For Barefoot Power over 6 or 7 years.
So would you say these organizations that provided grants and support, they're usually supporting for-profit business or non-profit or a mix of both?
In Australia, the idea of a social enterprise is largely non-profit. For example, there's a $20 million fund at the moment in Australia, which unfortunately Barefoot is still not eligible for even now, because most of our impact is overseas. I think they do both non-profits and for-profits to apply, but they're not terribly interested in supporting social enterprises based in Australia who have actually a global playing field. It's still very sort of navel-gazing and inward-looking, unfortunately.
But your products are manufactured not in Australia, or is it someplace else?
Just to finish off on the last point, but the overseas attitude to social enterprise, however, doesn't have any issues around whether you're non-profit, for-profit, or focusing locally with your impact, or focusing globally with your impact. So I'd say Australia is about 7 years behind the rest of the world and that sort of stuff, and hopefully one day we'll catch up. For manufacturing, we started with local assembly in Papua New Guinea from components purchased in China. We found that a lot of time and effort went into training and assisting the local partners to do that local assembly, and very little time and effort went into the sales and market of the products. So it really was not a scalable idea to do local assembly. So with a few outbreaks involved, we moved all of the engineering back to China. We pre-engineered the system so that you would not have to cut wire and strip wire and things like that, that made a truly plug-and-play system that people could put together without any training. I think IKEA systems meets power systems, flat-pack power systems and containers shipped out to the masses. And now the focus of importers that we partner with is mostly around getting these systems out there and doing the sales and marketing, which the Chinese can't do. I don't think it's terribly realistic for too many people in countries that even lack basic access to electricity to try and compete with product or kit assembly against the Chinese when they have their own unique opportunities to deliver profit by delivering and installing these systems, which the Chinese cannot possibly do. And you do need the local people to do all that last mile work. And frankly, the profit margins in distribution and retail are much better than the profit margins in manufacture. So it does make a lot of sense to end up in the situation we're in. But one day we may look at some sort of in-country manufacture, but not likely at the moment.
Right. What about the how was the service and support delivered to the end users?
Probably I'd say we focus more on the service and support to the retailer rather than the end user. The end user usually receives a system that is fairly idiot-proof, but sometimes there are technical issues and they have to come back to the retailer. But our staff cannot go and hold the hand of every end consumer and end customer. Our job is to help support the retailers and the distribution channels so that they are then able to pass on increased knowledge and assistance to the end customer. And we've invested a lot of time and effort in that sort of after-sales support. We received a very fortunate €1 million grant from the European Union a few years ago to train and support 2,000 micro-energy entrepreneurs who all had a business in a bag. And think Avon ladies selling Tupperware through a sort of soft franchise system, but in this case it was oil lamps and solar panels.
What about, God.
All of those entrepreneurs are active today. There was a high churn rate and turnover rate, similar to the statistics you might see for small and micro business in Western countries as well. It's typically known that only 30% of micro and SMEs in Western countries still exist after 3 to 5 years. So similar numbers apply, unsurprisingly, to our field as well. But those that continue are growing strongly, and we've also got many other channels to market other than training entrepreneurs through NGOs, corporates, telcos, and other partnerships.
What kind of financial requirements, let's say for distributors then, that would like to work with Barefoot Power?
Well, the smallest distributor is just a retailer who's selling some kerosene lamp from his shop, and maybe he's got enough money to buy some product, or maybe we need to push out some supplier credit to him. That was a concept that we won the G20 prize for, was instead of the idea of microcredit, which is sending cash out to these people. And for example, one way we could do that is the Kiva model, where we help an entrepreneur get profiled online, cash Kiva to the microfinance organisation, and then the entrepreneur gets that cash to buy from us. But innovative way that we decided to change that was to send the product at credit, so micro supplier credit, to the entrepreneur. And that's a bit more efficient because then the entrepreneur doesn't need to raise the cash, only we do. And we can manage the risk of that. It also helps with scaling up the micro business into a larger business, which micro struggles to do. Because every time we send a new shipment, we can actually send a larger shipment than the previous one. And often we see the increase in shipment volumes becoming 100% or 200% growth per year. The early stages of small volumes to larger volumes. So that's where micro supplier credit can make a lot of assistance and also keep interest rates low, because we're already making our profit out of the product itself from the profit margin. So we need not be too vulturish with the interest rates that are charged.
Okay.
But then the financial requirements for someone like Susan Nunamaker or a large corporate, a large telco, are quite minimal. They've got a lot more cash than we do. They're able to purchase on pretty normal commercial terms. So depending who the customer is, the requirements can be quite involved, where we do try to help them scale up and access finance. Or sometimes they can have more finance than we do, and they can even pass out.
Okay.
Our largest investors was actually our supplier in China, who helped to quite a large degree of line of credit when Western investors refused to sign checks for inventory. And the Chinese supplier helped to supply credit from their side to get more product into the field, which proved up the business case for Western investors who eventually signed some checks and will place that line of credit.
And I suspect the same could be said for the, let's say, keep a loan repayment settlement procedure. Would that vary somewhat depending on the individual distributors, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's early days for us at the moment, but we have had our own experience with extending credit to our own entrepreneurs, and that certainly was not a painful exercise. There are defaults, there are problems. If people aren't expecting that, they better get out of government pyramid work.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got to manage those risks as best you can, and keep the good ones and roll back the bad ones.
Yes, trials and errors. But what about how many countries do you see in Africa that's currently having these, distributorship with Barefoot Power? Which are some of the countries you can think of?
Well, we're present in most of the African countries. There's very few that we don't have some sort of presence or just not yet reached. The main ones that are well known, where people know of our activities, include Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Senegal, Mali, and South Africa, probably the main ones. But we're certainly present in many other African countries as well.
Oh. Do you foresee, are they all having to do with a lighting setup, or are there products that involves more than the solar lights?
Well, from very early on, we found that our solar LED desk lamp that we started with could also be used to charge a mobile phone. In fact, villages were starting to strip.
that is very important.
Stripping the plug and the wire off the solar panel. And saying, why are you doing that? You can't charge your lamp if you do that. Connecting the bare wires to the bare battery terminals in the mobile phone. Well, already worked out what could be done. And we did a few tests ourselves with low-end mobile phones. And sure enough, I had a little Nokia that was being used by factory workers in China. And we found and investigated, looking at the Nokia specification, that there was no real reason why you couldn't directly charge a mobile phone straight off a solar panel. Charge every single phone on the planet, so it wasn't a perfect solution. But for the low-end phones prevalent in the African and other markets, it actually does work pretty well. So we're one of the first companies to do direct direct solar charging of phones from panels. And we told the villagers, please stop stripping your wire off the solar panels. We'll provide a second plug for the phone. Please keep the first plug for the lamp. So now the best-selling product, the 1.5 watt solar desk lamp, and we also increased the size of the solar panel so it would charge more phones. Was a great success because it had two functions. It wasn't just about lighting, it was also a good mobile phone charging product. And we did launch some products that could not charge a mobile phone that were cheaper. But frankly, we didn't find that the uptake was nearly as good. And so that multifunctionality is important. We started introducing fans, larger systems, and other possibilities also exist, such as radios, TVs.
Oh, do you think it maybe even solar thermal, perhaps?
Maybe one day. The problem with solar thermal, specifically that it would be focused on hot water heating, is that the current method of hot water heating in most villages is not monetized. Mostly people are just walking out to get firewood. It's their time and their effort, but there's no cash involved. And then you're trying to monetize something that was not previously monetized. The beautiful thing about kerosene lighting, mobile phone charging, is it's non-cultural. It doesn't change from culture to culture around the world, unlike cooking, which does, and it's already monetized. So
that's an issue.
Yes. Your entry point. There are places where you've got charcoal markets, and where cooking has been monetized, and that's where you'd want to start if you started getting into cooking and heating.
All right, and lastly, but what is it that you would like to tell the world, or let's say, and also, what is it that we can do to help Barefoot Power to become even more successful?
I'll say that just helping to support these entrepreneurs that end up on Kiva is a great way of showing support. I'm very excited about the possibility that we can help more and more people seeing what we're doing in a more online environment than what we've historically done. So that's very exciting. And even just dropping into the website and saying, look, can we help out? Is there something that we're able to do, whether it's time and effort or financial, or design aspects? There's any number of things that can be done. So you can go to barefootpower.com or villageinfrastructure.org, which is where I live these days. And just let us know what your skills and abilities are, and there's often a way that we can find a way to engage with that. And maybe not immediately, but maybe in the future. And I think a lot more of what we're doing is going to be clearly seen online compared to the past. And hopefully we can engage a large crowd of supporters to help us get to tens of millions of people instead of just millions.
That would be fantastic. Would you welcome also, let's say, potential distributors from U.S. or Florida or some of the any other parts of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a Barefoot LED desk lamp is something that can be on a coffee table that promotes conversation, which can be seen by the right people, and who knows what comes out of that. I know multiple people here in Australia who purchased a lamp, and they say it's great for the kids. They get exposed to what solar power is, they get exposed to the issues of Africa, and for an affordable amount. You can see some on Amazon.com at the moment. We've got a distributor in the US who's selling progressively in the country. Mind you, the US government has slapped a massive tariff increase on solar panels, and that threatened this guy's small business, which is no way a competing threat to industry that tariff ban was intended to do. It's a ridiculously formatted intervention by the government, which has reached right down to tiny little solar panels that really no effect. So, unfortunately, it's not only in Africa you see crazy tariff behaviour. You'll see some of the worst of it in the USA. So maybe we'll sell more solar panels in Europe, Canada and Australia in the short term.
Well, historically, it's not the healthiest thing, those tariffs. And hopefully things will change for us.
Yeah, I hope so. There's quite a few studies out there that suggest that more value is created in the US solar market, same way that we see value created, and that's in installation, distribution, and getting those solar panels on houses. And that the jobs created in manufacture and assembly are not nearly as many to those downstream benefits. So lack of access to cheap solar panels in a globally competitive market has actually killed off those downstream jobs.
It actually will hurt the consumers in US a great deal more.
It's an unfortunate result of maybe a not so well thought out strategy. So anyway, this is the world we live in, and
well, but keep in mind, US, hopefully US is still dynamic enough that the voters have a say in the matters, and well, hopefully, one can always hope.
Yeah, I'm not sure the solar voters outnumber the non-solar voters just yet, though.
All right.
We're building up the panel.
Well, but thank you very much for your time, and I hope we will still be able to check back with you in a year or half a year to see any progress or any other questions. I hope we will be able to still pose, and thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, and we look forward to even more greater success with Barefoot Power, and have a good day then.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time, and hope to see you again in the future, probably with a new non-Barefoot Power hat on as well.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely check back, email you beforehand, and much appreciated, and have a wonderful day.
Good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.